Hello, America, and hello, nuclear aficionados around the world. Welcome to Nuclear.com Daily. This is Thursday, January 2nd, 2014. I'm Steve Schulin of Nuclear.com, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be part of your day. Those of you listening in later via podcast or on YouTube, please know that you are welcome, wanted, and encouraged to come join in live every Monday through Friday starting at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join in just like a conference call. The phone number is 724-444-7444. You'll be asked for a call ID. That's 95348#. Come one, come all of goodwill to Nuclear.com Daily. Let us reason together. Boy, 2014 is going to be an exciting year here at Nuclear.com. And today we got some humdingers of stories. My top story comes from the front page of a Pakistani newspaper, the Dawn newspaper. Their top story is China to give $6.5 billion concessional loan for nuclear plants. That's a big hunk of change. The adjacent story is also about nuclear plants. They say for Pakistan, they expect 8,900 megawatts worth of nuclear power generation by the year 2030. And it looks like China wants to have a big part of that. Thank you, dear. The Nuclear Energy Institute, their daily email had the story about the 8,900 megawatts, but they didn't have the story about the Chinese competitors offering such a huge financing aspect of it. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting story. My next top story comes out of the front page today of the Cod Times. You know, they're battening down the hatches up there on the Cape in the Boston area for blizzard conditions. But after the lead story is about the storm coming, their top story and their photograph there on the front page is about Pilgrim. And the headline is, "Will Pilgrim join the unreliable 8?" And they're referring to the eight lowest ranked plants by the NRC in the United States. I don't know if unreliable 8 is the appropriate phrase for that, but it is kind of catchy. The unreliable 8. Let's get it down to the unreliable 0. How about? All right, moving on internationally. The Cod Times has a story about Iran, the secret Iran talks, highlighting the participation of Bill Burns, an assistant in the Obama administration. And a story about North Korea, the new, I forget what they call them, the new deity there, the youngest of the Kims to be dictators there in North Korea. He gave some comments about killing his uncle. "Filth purge correct" is the headline. "Uncle's execution bolsters North's unity by 100 times, he says in a baffling message." That's the subhead. His comments in an annual New Year's Day message included a call for improved ties with South Korea, but also a warning of possible nuclear catastrophe. May God help us. All right, and the final front page story was from the Washington Post, and it also made the front page of the Sacramento Bee today. The Sacramento Bee titled it, Global Censors Cited as Boost for Nuke Treaty. And the Washington Post headline was, Built to detect nuclear tests, system has a knack for science. By Washington Post reporter Joby Warwick. The online version is titled, Surveillance Network Built to Spot Secret Nuclear Tests Yields Surprise Scientific Boom, or boon. They've got a video showing undersea acoustic monitors set up to detect illegal nuclear activity, pick up all sorts of other sounds as well, ranging from whales to earthquakes. Dateline, Vienna, Austria. It records sounds that no human ear can hear, like the low roar of a meteor slicing through the upper atmosphere, or the hum an iceberg makes when smacked by an ocean wave. Well, isn't that pretty prose? Joby Warwick sounds like the introduction that George Knapp, investigative reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, uses for his spots on the late night radio show Coast to Coast AM. Back to the Washington Post story. It has picked up threats invisible to the human eye, such as the haze of radioactive particles. He's kind of losing me. If it's a haze, is it invisible? I've never heard of an invisible haze that circled the planet after the Fukushima nuclear accident. The engineers who designed the world's first truly planetary surveillance network 2 decades ago envisioned it as a way to detect illegal nuclear weapons tests. Today, the nearly completed international monitoring system is proving adept at tasks its inventors never imagined. The system's scores of listening stations continuously eavesdrop on Earth itself, offering clues about man-made and natural disasters, as well as providing a window into some of nature's most mysterious processes. The Obama administration hopes the network's capabilities will persuade a reluctant Senate to approve a nuclear test ban treaty that stalled in Congress more than a decade ago. Meanwhile, without the treaty and wholly without fanfare, new stations come online almost every month. Quote, we can pick up whale sounds and ice sheets cracking, said a spokesman for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. That's the Vienna-based group that operates the network. More importantly, he said, we can reliably detect nuclear tests. The monitoring system is a lattice work of sensors, including radiation detectors and machines that measure seismic activity or low-frequency sound waves, spread out over 89 countries, as well as the oceans and polar regions. Like a giant stethoscope, it listens for irregularities in Earth's natural rhythms, collecting and transmitting terabytes of data to a small office in the Austrian capital. The network was designed to help enforce the 1996 Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which outlawed explosive testing of nuclear weapons. But while the treaty has never entered into force, the United States and 7 other countries have declined to ratify it, in part because of concerns over verification. The monitoring network has steadily grown over the years, from a handful of stations in 2003 to now more than 270 stations. The network has emerged as one of the most compelling arguments for the treaty, advocates say. Arms control officials in the Obama administration have cited the network's advances in arguing for a new push for Senate ratification of the nuclear test ban, despite opposition from prominent Republicans who argue that the pact undermines U.S. interests. There's been a growing realization, especially after Fukushima, that the international monitoring system has improved to an impressive level, says Rose Gottmoller, the State Department's Assistant Secretary for Arms Control, Verification, and Compliance. Quote, it became clear, she said, that the time is right to go out and talk about these accomplishments and what the treaty can do for U.S. national security. The Test Ban Treaty has not come up for a vote in the Senate since 1999, when it was soundly defeated. The vote embarrassed the Clinton administration and drew criticism from countries around the world, including Russia, which is among the pact's 161 signatories. At the time, the U.S. had already halted testing of its nuclear weapons under an undeclared moratorium that began in 1992. Still, most Republicans and many Democrats opposed the treaty on the grounds that it offered false security at the time. There was no system in place that could reliably detect cheating. The International Monitoring System was designed to address those concerns. Construction began on the first listening stations in 2000, and dozens were operating by 2006, when the network experienced its first major test, an underground detonation that signaled North Korea's emergence as a nuclear weapons power. The country's communist government would conduct 2 additional tests, one in 2009 and the other just last February. We detected the announced 2006 test, even though only 60% of the network was in place, said the CBTTO official. He said 21 of the system's stations registered that event, compared with 94 seismology stations detecting North Korea's test in 2013. As it turned out, the network's listening posts did more than simply pick up the test's underground shock waves. Numerous stations also picked up trace amounts of radioactive xenon, a gas emitted in nuclear explosions. From studying the xenon plume, scientists could even calculate how long North Korea waited to open the sealed entrances to its underground test chambers. Arms control experts say the North Korean tests show that the monitoring system is up to the challenge for which it was designed, deterring secret nuclear weapons tests. While today's advanced computers can conduct simulations of nuclear explosion, few countries would seek to field a nuclear arsenal or modernize an existing one without testing whether the technology works, according to a senior European diplomat involved in arms control negotiations. Quote, "This actually works in favor of the United States because it effectively freezes its nuclear advantages in place while inhibiting other countries from developing nuclear weapons," said the official, who insisted on anonymity because he was not authorized to discuss the matter. Arms control advocates worry that a failure to approve the treaty will eventually result in increased competition among countries seeking to acquire nuclear weapons or upgrade their arsenals. If all hope for passage dies, support for the monitoring network, which costs more than $120 million annually in member state dues to maintain, will probably dry up as well, proponents say, leading to the loss of a scientific asset which benefits the entire planet. In the past 2 years alone, advocates note, the network has contributed to scientists' understanding of a variety of natural disturbances. When a deadly tsunami damaged Japan's Fukushima reactor, the network's sensors tracked the spread of airborne radioactive contamination across the Pacific Ocean to North America and beyond. And last year, when an asteroid exploded over the Chelyabinsk province of Russia, the system's monitors were able to track the trajectory and size of the space rock as it plummeted toward Earth. Current and former U.S. officials who have followed the network's evolution say its capabilities are impressive, but they acknowledge that it may not be enough to sway doubters in Congress. While alleged President Obama has promised to push for ratification of the treaty, former lawmakers say the public support necessary to win passage has not materialized. It looks pretty far away at this moment, said former Senator Richard G. Lugar, Republican of Indiana, a champion of arms control during his 3 decades in Congress. He opposed the test ban in 1999, in part because of concerns over verification. Quote, "Just getting the START treaty across the finish line was such a struggle, and it was relatively modest." Goetmoller, the State Department official, noted that support for the 1960s ban on above-ground nuclear tests was prompted by a global concern about radioactive contaminants in milk. Quote, "The limited test ban treaty grew out of a mother's movement," she said. "We need to generate that kind of public support." Interesting. I hadn't heard Rose talk that way. You know, on the background there on the screen, you'll see a Twitter page, the nuclear.com daily page there on Twitter. We follow, I think it's up to about 170 people who tweet almost exclusively about things nuclear, and Rose Gutmeyer is one of. is one of them. I strongly urge you to bookmark that list, that Twitter list. It is an invaluable source of keeping abreast of what's new in the nuclear world. Well, I'm going to call it a day. Hope you have a good one. Those of you in the nuclear biz, make it another safe one, my friends. This is Steve Schulin signing off for Nuclear.com Daily.